Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, usually I only react to like politicians or political leaders making a speech is when something relevant has happened that people are interested about, and I watch them and I often enjoy them. But I just want to watch it. I respect Macron a lot, and I hope I don't get. I don't think there's a world leader out there that I would classify as just as perfect as you can get in your demeanor as a politician, or especially as a world leader, as Emmanuel Macron. So I know there are going to be a lot of people who know much more about European politics than me, and especially more about French politics. And so you'll probably know more about him and maybe disagree with me. But just coming from someone who's still pretty ignorant of all this stuff and what Macron might have done or not done, I still think he is just a very. I can't think of anyone. I phrase why I like this man a lot. So, this is a long video. I already skipped ahead to when he starts talking. I want to give it a hear. So that's what I'm doing. I could have said that much more quickly, but.
Mr. Prime Minister, Madam, Honourable Ministers, Mr. Speaker, Lord Speaker, Honourable Members of Parliament, Members of the House of Lords, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you, Speaker, for your kind words and greatly appreciate everyone's warm welcome. On behalf of my wife Bridget and myself and my whole delegation, thank you very much for that. And it is a very great honor to speak before the two houses of the British Parliament. A place composed of both a high chamber and a low chamber, a place of history bygone and history in the making. A place where modern democracy emerged and the principles of democratic representation and consent were born. In making its own rules, your great people has inspired, among the rest of the world, and in particular my compatriots, who regard you with respect, with more than a bit of admiration. In France, Montesquieu and Rousseau drew from the works of Locke to such an extent that the Lettres philosophiques by Rousseau are often referred to as letters on the English in my country. But please, do not misunderstand me. I'm not going so far as to say that England gave birth to the French Revolution. However, I have to confess that we love monarchy, but especially when it's not at home. But I really believe that from the Magna Carta to America's Declaration of Independence in 1776 and France's Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen in 1789, a same pathway emerged towards democratic order and the rule of law. And so many times, this shared path was forged in the brotherhood of arms. So many times it followed the small trails of the Ardennes and the Vosges mountains under the hail of German bullets from 1914 to 1918. So many times it almost veered off course, taken up by our common ancestors, reconquering the Normandy coast inch by inch under the glaring sun of June 1944. And I would like to thank Prime Minister Starmer, dear Keir, for attending the ceremonies of the 11th of November last year, honoring our fallen soldiers, the British Red Poppy alongside the Bleuet de France, becoming the first British head of government to spend Armistice Day in Paris in 80 years. Thank you.
Again, I can't really think of policy that Emmanuel Macron has. And so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, well, you have a lot of this admiration for him and don't know much. That's fair. I just admire very much his demeanor and respectful way of talking. He reads a room very well and he speaks very eloquently. And I think that's something that most countries, including my own, would love to have a leader that presents himself like that, you know?
The French people shall never forget the sacrifices British people made to protect Europe and the world during the two world wars, and to uphold with fierce determination the promise of our entente cordiale. We shall never forget the support of the asylum your forefathers gave to the Free French forces in the fight against the barbarism of the Nazis. Sir Winston Churchill was one of the visionaries who had the foresight to help forge a strong transatlantic alliance and to come up with a peaceful European order in which he deeply believed. He passed this same vision on to us of a world order based on law, justice, and respect for territorial integrity. An order that is today being attacked on a daily basis as we witness direct attacks on our democracies, the return of war to our continent, the resurgence of imperial impulses, and the flouting of international rules by destabilizing powers who are attempting to divide up the world to their advantage. Speaker, you and your predecessors have become famous, I have to say, even in France, for your way of restoring order in the courts with your imperial and imperious exclamations, "Order, order."
Order.
And today, we wish to join you in shooting out "Order, order" with you to calm the unrest in the world. As permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, deeply committed to multilateralism, the United Kingdom and France must once again show the world that our alliance can make all the difference. Clearly, we have to work together in order to defend an efficient multilateralism and to protect the international order as we forged it after the Second World War. And first, in supporting Ukraine, which has been illegally attacked, by both rallying the support of Europeans and coordinating with the Americans to create the necessary conditions for a robust and solid, lasting peace. I want to commend your country. Since the first day, and even before the first day, you were part of the closest ally of Ukraine. Training the army, being here the first day to protect President Zelensky, his government, and allowing the forces just to resist, as you did decades ago with my country. And together we worked very hard during the past few years in order to stand with the Ukrainian people, just helping them to resist. We were right and we are right. And because every time Vladimir Putin's Russia advances in Ukraine, the threat moves closer to us all. We will never accept the theory that might is right. And I want to be clear. This is why, together with you, Mr. Prime Minister, we decided to launch last February this coalition of the willing you mentioned. And this coalition was just a signal that the Europeans will never abandon Ukraine. Never.
Another thing I admire, I'm not sure how much I'm going to get through this. It's a long video, it's going to speak for a long time. I won't get through the whole thing. But when I see, I'm not very political, Okay, at least I try not to be. Of course, I have my own political thoughts, and I ponder them often. But the way that he stands up and speaks his mind, even when he's one-on-one with Trump in the Oval Office, is admirable. And trying to word this carefully. I'm just glad that there are some powers, strong powers around the world that can fill in for American power if need be, especially for the sake of Ukraine, to be able to not have just either having to talk to Trump or to Putin in terms of how to talk to Putin. Obviously not a thing between Zelensky and Putin for obvious reasons, but to not just have one negotiator with you who is seemingly very wish-washy and changes his views and can be unpredictable and flat out insane sometimes. It's nice to just see very professional, reassuring leaders in countries in Europe. And so again, I'm not saying I know everything about Macron's policies and that I love him for all of that. I'm not really sure of much of that, but just for his ability to communicate and his demeanor, I have tremendous respect, and I would love to have that in my own leader.
And whatever the decisions could be elsewhere, we will fight till the very last minute in order to get the ceasefire, in order to start the negotiations to build this robust and sustainable peace. Because this is our security and our principles together which are at stake in Ukraine. This is the possibility of a Europe in peace. Our generation did enjoy during the past decade, which is at stake in Ukraine, nothing less. And together we will follow up these efforts. We have also stood together in calling for the cessation of hostilities and path to peace in the Middle East, since the spiral of violence began after the terrorist attacks by Hamas on the 7th of October 2023. Together, we call for the release of all hostages. Together, we've called for a ceasefire in Gaza. It is a matter of absolute urgency to end the suffering of the hostages and of the Gazans. A war without end and without a strategic objective poses a huge threat to the region and our collective security. Today, a dehumanization is occurring there that can never be justified. Together, we are aware that a political way out is crucial, and I believe in the future of the two-state solution as a basis for a regional security architecture, which will enable Israel to live in peace and security alongside its neighbors. But I want to be clear. Calling today for a ceasefire in Gaza without any condition is just telling to the rest of the world that for us as Europeans, there is no double standard. And as we are attached to human lives, as we are attached to territorial integrity, we want a ceasefire. No discussion. And today, working together in order to recognize the state of Palestine and to initiate this political momentum is the only path to peace. Because since Oslo in 1993, with Gaza in ruin and West Bank being on a daily basis attacked, the perspective of a Palestinian state has never been put at risk as it is. And the objective of a recognition is not just making our duty, But this is as well reopening a political perspective and refusing just an answer based on security. And this is why the solution of the two states and the recognition of the state of Palestine is as well, according to me, the only way to build peace and stability for all in the whole region. This approach is in line with our common refusal to tolerate the threat posed by an Iran that possesses nuclear weapons. There again, we know all too well the limitations of solutions based on force and the temptation to bring about regime change. France, the United Kingdom and Germany, in coordination with all stakeholders, have the duty to bring about a stringent negotiation which ensures international monitoring of Iran's nuclear program over the long term, thereby preserving the international non-proliferation framework as a foundation for collective security. It is with the same coherence and firmness that we must act to defend the world order. In Africa, our two countries have had a weighty past, which is why we can legitimately send a message of conciliation and refusal of spheres of influence, of respect for economic and territorial sovereignty. In the Indo-Pacific, our history has made us a watchdog of the freedom of navigation and compliance with international law, which we defend. Amid these upheavals, the alliance between France and the United Kingdom has not faltered. It has even become stronger. Yes, during the past few years, this alliance became stronger. On defense and security, the Lancaster House treaties showed that we were willing to cooperate on the most sensitive subjects regarding our sovereignty and our deterrence. When our two countries signed them, some clever people found a way to derive savings of resources from them, and others even dubbed them the Entente Régale. Yet, they have successfully provided structure for defense cooperation between our two countries for the past 15 years. At this bilateral summit, we will enter a new stage that will scale up this cooperation. And our two countries, the only European nuclear weapon states, the leading armed forces of the continent, together accounting for 40% of European military budgets, vow to fully shoulder the responsibility when it comes to European security. And we are faced with new threats, with aggressive nuclear powers, with sometimes hesitating alliances, and the return of major conflict on our continent. This is why, in 2 days, our summit is so important, and the announcement we prepared so historical. The capabilities identified 15 years ago at Lancaster House must be increased dramatically in proportion to the threat. Our industrial cooperation must also move to the next level, and our relation to Europe must change, even in the core of sovereignty. There is an expectation in Europe that, faced with revisionist neighbors, our two countries have a special responsibility for the security of the continent. And it is time to articulate it. And to paraphrase Pete's famous phrase, to make sure that not only our two countries will save themselves by their own exertions, but also that we will save Europe by our example and our solidarity. But we will return to this in more detail at the summit on Thursday, but very clearly, taking the commitment to go to the 3.5% on defense in the years to come. It's not just piling money, but increasing our cooperation altogether, reducing our dependencies, and building a strong European pillar in NATO. We have to work together to cooperate as we did a few years ago in Sahel, shoulder to shoulder. We have to cooperate in order to build new common program, to increase the cooperation of our industries, and to make a more independent and stronger Europe of defense. Second, on climate and biodiversity.
So, I think I'm going to stop there. Okay, I kind of already went further than I meant to, but I wanted to hear his words on especially that first point. I'm sure he's going to make other great points throughout the rest of the video, but I'm going to stop here and just give this final point. Something that I kind of use the term post World War II era, which I believe right now is the beginning of. And I think it's a good thing. The United States after World War II, and for the decades following it, I believe it held too much power was held by one nation and one governing authority that I don't think is healthy for the world. Nor even should one country have to bear that burden. But no country is capable of doing it, in my opinion, and I think it is a good thing for the protection of the world to be divided up more than it has been in the past since the end of World War II. And I think the UK and France are two of the top candidates to have some of that power go to. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a better term for it that I can use, but I call it the post World War II era that I think we're getting into. Yeah, so great speech. For those who know much more about Macron and have criticisms of him, which I'm sure many of you do, I'm not speaking of him as I know he's this perfect leader or anything. I'm speaking of the way he presents himself, and I can't think of a world leader that does it any better than he does. So I have an enormous amount of respect for Macron, and yeah, I agree with everything he said. So I'm not sure how exciting of a reaction this had been. I didn't talk too much or give too many of my opinions, but I don't know. I like seeing I love France, I love the UK, and I like seeing the cooperation and the way that it is described by someone like Macron in the UK. So hope everyone's doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. If you disagree with anything I said, you can answer any questions I might have had. That'd be great. And I hope I'll see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning. Bye, guys.